Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Alright, let's get into it. Sometimes the scariest part of life isn't death. It's betrayal. This story is about Daniel, a man who worked his fingers to the bone to provide for his wife Cynthia. A man who thought love was unshakable until one single evening, when he decided to surprise her by coming home early. That day started like any other. Daniel was at the construction site where he worked as a supervisor. Sweat ran down his face, dust clung to his clothes, and his muscles ached from lifting and shouting directions. But still, he smiled, because every block laid, every nail hammered, was for Cynthia. She was his world, his queen, the woman he had promised to protect with his life. Normally, Daniel stayed late to finish reports, but that evening, something inside him whispered, "Go home. She'll be happy to see you." So he left earlier than usual, carrying a small box of her favorite chocolates. He even rehearsed in his head how he would sneak behind her, hug her, and whisper, "I love you." He walked faster, almost running. His chest burned with excitement. The taxi dropped him at the gate of their apartment, and for a moment, he just stood there, smiling. But when he opened the door, his smile froze. He heard something, a sound that didn't belong. A voice, no. Two voices. His heart skipped. He placed the chocolates on the shelf quietly and tiptoed down the hall. His palms grew sweaty. His breath caught in his throat. He hoped, no, he prayed. He was wrong. But as he reached the bedroom door, the sound became clear. Moans. Soft, guilty moans. His world shattered. Daniel's hands trembled, his chest pounded, his vision blurred with hot tears. With one push, he flung the door open, and there she was. Cynthia, his wife, his everything, on their marital bed with another man. Time froze. The air turned heavy. Cynthia's eyes went wide, her mouth opening, trying to speak, but no words came out. The other man jumped up, scrambling for his clothes. Daniel stood there, motionless, his hands clenched into fists, veins bulging, as the chocolate slipped from his grip and scattered on the floor. He whispered, almost too quietly, "Why?" But Cynthia didn't answer. She just wrapped a sheet around herself and cried. Something inside Daniel snapped. The pain was too deep, too sharp. Betrayal burned hotter than fire in his chest, and in that silence, standing in front of the two people who had destroyed his heart, Daniel made a deadly choice. Daniel's chest rose and fell like a storm was trapped inside him. His vision blurred with anger, with heartbreak, with something darker that even he didn't recognize. He had loved this woman. He had bled for her. He had sacrificed sleep, joy, and comfort just to make her happy. And now, this, Cynthia stammered, "Baby, it's not what you think." But Daniel's laugh cut through her words, a laugh so hollow, so broken, it sent shivers down her spine. "Not what I think, Cynthia. I walked into my own house, my own bedroom, and found my wife with another man. You want to tell me it's not what I think?" The other man, shirt halfway on, tried to step forward. "Bro, calm down. I didn't know she was married." Daniel's head snapped toward him, and the look in his eyes could have killed a lion. "You dare speak in my house?" The man froze, sweat dripping from his face. He looked for an exit, but Daniel's presence was like a wall. Daniel took one slow step into the room, then another. His boots echoed on the floor, heavy, deliberate. Cynthia backed up, clutching the sheet tighter, tears streaming. "Daniel, please, listen to me." But he didn't listen. He couldn't. His mind was screaming, his heart was bleeding, and his hands wanted revenge. He walked over to the nightstand, slowly, calmly, too calmly. He opened the drawer, and inside lay the object he hadn't touched in months. A rusted revolver his late father had left him. The room went silent. The other man's breath caught. His knees trembled. Cynthia gasped, "No, Daniel, please don't!" Daniel picked it up, his fingers wrapping around the cold metal. His hand shook, but his eyes were steady, locked on the stranger who had stolen his peace. "Do you know," Daniel said in a low, chilling tone, "how many nights I stayed awake to build this home?" Do you know how many times I broke my back just so she could smile? And you come here and destroy it in a single night." The man dropped to his knees. "Please, brother, forgive me. I didn't know—" "Shut up!" Daniel roared, his voice cracking like thunder. Cynthia screamed, tears falling like rain. "Daniel, don't do this. Please, you'll ruin your life." Daniel's chest heaved. The gun shook in his hand, and for a moment there was silence again. The kind of silence that hangs in the air before a storm breaks. Then, bang! The shot rang out, loud, deafening. The man fell, clutching his chest, blood spilling onto the bedsheets. His body jerked, then stilled. Cynthia's scream pierced the night, raw and desperate. She covered her mouth, eyes wide with terror, as her lover lay dead on the floor of their bedroom. Daniel's hand trembled. He stared at the gun, at the smoke curling from its barrel, at the lifeless body before him. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it might tear through his ribs. Cynthia sobbed uncontrollably, crawling toward the man's body. "No! Oh God, no! Daniel, what have you done?" But Daniel didn't answer. He just stood there, chest heaving, face blank. It wasn't rage anymore. It wasn't pain. It was emptiness. He whispered again, almost to himself. "Why, Cynthia, why?" The chocolates he had bought for her lay scattered on the floor, some pieces crushed under his boots, melting into the carpet, just like his heart, broken beyond repair. The sound of the gunshot still echoed in the walls, bouncing back like a cruel reminder of what had just happened. Daniel's ears rang. His hands shook as the revolver grew heavier, almost burning his skin. The man's body twitched once, then went still. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, as though frozen in shock forever. Cynthia screamed, a scream so raw, so piercing it tore through the night like shattered glass. Her knees hit the floor as she crawled toward the body, clutching the lifeless man, sobbing uncontrollably. "Wake up, please, wake up!" she cried, shaking him, her tears staining his chest. "God, no! Daniel, what have you done?" But Daniel didn't move. He didn't flinch. He stood like a statue, his eyes wide but empty, staring at the mess of blood and betrayal before him. The chocolates he had bought, his peace offering, his small act of love, lay scattered, crushed and melted on the carpet. He stared at them for a long moment, his chest tightening. That box of chocolates was supposed to bring joy, a smile, maybe even laughter. Now it lay destroyed, just like his marriage, just like his heart. Daniel's lips parted. His voice was hoarse, trembling. "Cynthia." She turned to him, eyes red, cheeks wet, her face twisted with grief and horror. "Why, Daniel, why did you do this?" His voice cracked lower than a whisper. "No. Why did you do this? I gave you everything. My sweat, my love, my life. And you." He pointed at the blood-soaked stranger. "You brought this into our home, into my bed." Her sobbing grew louder. She clutched the man tighter, rocking back and forth as if her embrace could pull him back from death. "Daniel, you've destroyed us! You've destroyed yourself!" Daniel's chest rose and fell. He looked at her, at the woman he once adored, now weeping over another man. It hit him like a knife to the soul. She wasn't crying for him. She wasn't worried about her husband, the man who had broken his back to keep her safe. She was crying for the stranger. That realization crushed him more than the betrayal itself. His hand holding the revolver began to tremble violently. He dropped it. It hit the floor with a dull thud, rolling slightly before coming to a stop beside the bed. Daniel's knees buckled. He collapsed onto the floor, his face buried in his palms, and for the first time that night he cried. Deep, guttural sobs tore through his chest. He hadn't cried like this since he was a child, but now the tears flowed uncontrollably, mixing with sweat, snot, and despair. Cynthia looked at him, her tears still falling, but her voice sharp with anger. "You're a murderer, Daniel! Do you hear me? A murderer!" Daniel raised his head slowly. His eyes were bloodshot, swollen from tears, but in them burned a pain deeper than any wound. "I was your husband," he whispered, "your protector, your partner, and you turned me into this." The words hung heavy in the air. The ticking clock on the wall suddenly seemed louder, each tick like a countdown to the end of their lives as they knew it. Blood continued to seep into the sheets, staining them forever. The smell of iron filled the room, mixing with Cynthia's perfume, the same perfume Daniel had once loved, now tainted with betrayal. The silence that followed was unbearable. Cynthia rocked back and forth, whispering through her tears, "This can't be real, this can't be real." Daniel stared at his hands, hands that had once built a home, held her close, wiped away her tears. Now those same hands had taken a life. His whole body shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. He felt like he was drowning in a sea of guilt and rage, unable to swim to the surface. For the first time since the shot, Daniel spoke again. His voice was faint, broken. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Somewhere deep inside, in that split second, he had wanted to. He had wanted the man gone. He had wanted the pain erased, even if just for a moment. And now there was no going back. The silence didn't last long. From outside the window, faint voices began to rise. A dog barked, then footsteps. Then knocks. Someone shouted from the corridor, "Is everything okay in there?" Cynthia froze. Her tears slowed. Her wide, panicked eyes shot toward the door. "Daniel, they heard it. They heard the gunshot." Daniel didn't move. His hands still covered his face, his body trembling on the floor. He was trapped in his own storm of guilt, unable to climb out. "Daniel!" Cynthia whispered harshly, her voice shaking. "They'll call the police! Do you understand what you've done?" Another knock rattled the door. "Daniel? Cynthia? Are you all right?" It was their neighbor, Mr. Kareem, the nosy landlord who always poked his head into everyone's business. Daniel finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, hollow. He looked at Cynthia, still kneeling by the lifeless body of her lover. And he whispered, "Let them come." Cynthia's jaw dropped. "What? Are you insane? You'll go to prison for the rest of your life. Daniel, say something. Say it was an accident." But Daniel didn't answer. His gaze drifted back to the body, then to the chocolates crushed on the floor. He let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. More voices filled the hallway now. The neighbors had gathered. Some whispered, others knocked, and one shouted, "We're calling the police!" Cynthia panicked. She rushed to Daniel, grabbing his shirt with trembling hands. "Please, Daniel, hide the gun. Say he attacked you. Say something, anything. Don't just sit there." But Daniel stared through her, as if she wasn't there. His lips moved slowly. "I built this home for you. I gave you my life, and you destroyed it with your lies. What story is there left to tell?" Cynthia's sobs turned desperate. She shook him harder. "Think about yourself. Think about me," Daniel snapped. His voice thundered. "Think about you." His shout silenced the room, silenced even Cynthia's crying. His chest heaved as he glared at her, his voice low, venomous. "You were never thinking about me when you brought him into our bed. You were never thinking about me when you gave him what was mine. Don't ask me now to save you." Cynthia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her body trembled, her tears unstoppable. For the first time that night, she looked at him not just with fear, but with guilt. Then came the sound. Sirens, faint at first, then louder. Flashing red and blue lights danced on the curtains. The police were close. Cynthia covered her face. Oh God, it's over." Daniel stood slowly, his knees weak, his hands trembling at his sides. He walked toward the window and peeked through the blinds. Police cars had already pulled up to the building. Officers were stepping out, hands on their weapons, scanning the apartments. His heart sank. There was no escape. The revolver still lay on the floor, mocking him. Its cold steel glistened under the dim light, soaked in silence and regret. Daniel turned back to Cynthia, his voice softer now, almost eerily calm. "Do you hear that?" She sniffled, confused. "What?" "The sound of my life ending." Cynthia let out a broken sob and collapsed beside the dead man again, whispering prayers under her breath. The doorbell rang, then fists pounded on the door. "Police, open up!" The neighbors outside scattered, whispering frantically. The air grew thick with tension. Daniel stared at the door. His body was frozen, but his mind raced. Should he confess? Should he fight? Should he end it himself before they broke in? Cynthia's voice cut through his thoughts, shaking and desperate. "Daniel, please, don't do anything stupid. Maybe they'll listen. Maybe—" But Daniel wasn't listening. His eyes had returned to the revolver on the floor. And as the police shouted again, louder this time, "Open the door or we break it down!" Daniel took one slow step toward the gun. The pounding at the door grew louder. "Police, open up now!" Cynthia's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She wasn't crying out of love for Daniel anymore. She was crying out of fear. Fear of being exposed. Fear of losing the comfortable life she had built on lies. Her eyes darted to the revolver lying on the floor. Her hands trembled. If only he hadn't picked it up. If only Daniel hadn't come home early. She crawled toward him, clutching the sheet to her chest, her words frantic. "Daniel, listen to me. If they find you like this, you'll go to prison. Please, say it was self-defense. Say he attacked us. I'll back you up. Just don't let them think you did it in anger." But Daniel looked at her with hollow eyes. His voice was heavy, slow, almost detached. "You'd lie for me like you lied to me?" Cynthia froze, her mouth open, her body shaking. The officers outside shouted again, "Open the door or we break it down!" And then the door splintered open. Flashlights cut through the darkness, and officers stormed in, weapons raised. They saw the blood. They saw the body. They saw Daniel standing with tears running down his face. "Drop the weapon! Hands up now!" Daniel bent down slowly, almost in surrender. His hand hovered over the revolver. For a moment it seemed like he might listen. But then Cynthia's voice shattered the silence. "There, he shot him! He killed him!" Her words were sharp, panicked, and they weren't said to save Daniel. They were said to save herself. The officers didn't hesitate. They lunged forward, tackling Daniel to the floor, pinning his arms behind his back. The revolver slid across the carpet, away from his reach. "Please!" Daniel cried, his voice muffled against the floor. "You don't understand, she—" But Cynthia screamed over him, her finger pointed like a knife. "He lost control! He killed my friend! I tried to stop him!" Her lies filled the room before Daniel could speak. And the officers believed her, not because she was innocent, but because she sounded like the victim. Daniel's tears spilled onto the floor as the cuffs bit into his wrists. He shook his head, broken. "Cynthia, you're finishing what you started." But she didn't even look at him. She just buried her face in her hands, wailing as though she were the one betrayed. And just like that, the story that night changed forever. Weeks later, the courtroom was full. Journalists lined the benches, cameras clicked, and whispers buzzed like bees. Daniel was gone. The official report said he had taken his own life while in custody, though the details were hushed. To the world, he was already a monster, a jealous husband who snapped. And Cynthia? She walked into that courtroom in black clothes, her hair covered with a scarf, her tears staged for the cameras. She sat at the witness stand and told her version of the story. She painted Daniel as controlling, angry, dangerous. She claimed she was trapped in a loveless marriage, that she had been too afraid to leave him. She told the court she begged him to stop, but he pulled the trigger anyway. And the jury believed her. The verdict? Daniel remembered as the murderer. Cynthia framed as the grieving widow, but lies have short legs. At first, Cynthia thought she had fooled everyone. She wore black at Daniel's funeral. She played the grieving widow for the cameras. She told neighbors how her violent husband had finally snapped. And for a short while, people pitied her. But detectives weren't satisfied. Too many things didn't add up. Why had she called Daniel dangerous only after his death, when friends and co-workers described him as gentle? Why did her bank records show secret transfers Daniel never approved? And most damning of all, why were there text messages on her lover's phone where Cynthia wrote, "Once Daniel is gone, we'll be free"? The mask cracked. When the case went back to court, the prosecution didn't hold back. They charged Cynthia with 1. Conspiracy to commit murder for the messages and plans with her lover. 2. Felony murder, because her actions directly led to a death. 3. Perjury and obstruction of justice, for lying to police and trying to frame Daniel. The jury listened as her own words were read aloud. Every "soon we'll be free" and "he won't be a problem much longer" echoed through the courtroom like knives. Cynthia sat trembling, trying to cry, but this time no one believed her. The prosecutor's closing words were sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel is dead today, not because of anger, not because of chance, but because his wife betrayed him, lied to him, and plotted behind his back. She may not have pulled the trigger, but she lit the match that burned everything down. It took the jury only 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge's sentence was final and merciless. Cynthia, your lies, your betrayal, and your selfishness destroyed lives. You tried to twist the truth to escape blame. But justice cannot be deceived. You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The gavel slammed. The cameras flashed one last time. Cynthia's mouth hung open in shock. She had gambled her life on lies, and lost. Prison swallowed her whole. The cell was small, gray and cold. Other inmates whispered her nickname, Black Widow. Guards barely looked at her. The world moved on, but she remained trapped in her own cage of betrayal. Every night she lay on the thin mattress, Daniel's broken voice echoing in her mind. "You're finishing what you started." And he was right. Her affair didn't just cost her marriage, it cost her freedom, her dignity, her life. She would grow old behind those walls, a forgotten shadow of the woman she once pretended to be. And when she finally died, the world would only remember her for one thing. Not as a wife, not as a victim, but as the woman who framed her husband and paid for it with her freedom. Cold, final, justice served. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.